UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy have called for the extension of a crucial deal with Moscow that allows Ukrainian grain exports. Speaking after talks in Kyiv, Zelenskyy stressed that the Black Sea Grain Initiative was vital for the world. Guterres agreed, saying the agreement was essential to global food security. The deal allows Ukraine to ship grain from its Black Sea ports and Russia to export fertilizer and food. It's set to expire on March 18th, and Moscow has signaled that it might not let the deal continue. Let's get more from our correspondent, Matthias Bollinger in Kyiv. Matthias, what more can you tell us about what President Zelenskyy and UN Secretary General Guterres have said?
Well, this was a meeting where both basically the two sides that agree that this meeting has to be extended were meeting. So these were not difficult talks. The difficult part is Russia that has attached some demands to its possible agreement to an extension of this grain initiative. This was a very symbolic meeting where both were showing their commitment to extend this.
Mm-hmm. And can you tell us a little bit more about what exactly is at stake here with this deal?
Well, this grain initiative started last summer. This was after Russia had, in the beginning of the war, blocked all Ukrainian ports, and grain could not be shipped out, leading not only to tremendous losses of the Ukrainian economy, but also to food shortages. And that was the reason for the UN and Turkey and many other actors to push Russia to unblock these ports. And then the two sides agreed, or the three sides, Turkey and the UN on one side, with separately Russia and Ukraine, agreed to establish a mechanism where ships would safely sail out of Ukrainian ports. Ukraine would either open a pathway for them or guide them through these waters that were mined, that Ukraine had mined and Russia had mined. And Russia committed to not attacking them, and then they would be inspected in Turkey, in Istanbul, so that Russia could make sure that no weapons are shipped in, nothing else is shipped out except those goods that have been agreed to. And that worked pretty well. Russia tried once to withdraw from this agreement, saying that they did not feel committed anymore, but ships, that was in November, ships continued to sail then, despite Russia withdrawing its guarantees, and Russia eventually recommitted to this agreement. It's, of course, a major way for Russia to pressure on Ukraine, to pressure also on the West and other countries, this agreement that not only Ukraine but also the world needs. And that is why these negotiations, every time that this agreement ends, it's always, it has been extended so far for 3 months each time that this agreement ends, that there are new negotiations, and Russia possibly also sees some leverage to get through some other demands, like an easing of sanctions, not for the agricultural sector that's exempt from sanctions by this agreement, but for maybe other sectors that affect also their exports.
Thank you so much for that update. That's DW correspondent Matthias Bollinger in Kyiv. And for the view from Russia, we can now cross over to DW correspondent Jennifer Palka, who's covering the Kremlin for us. She's joining us, of course, from the Latvian capital, Riga, because DW has been banned from reporting in Russia. Jennifer, the UN Secretary General saying it's critical that this grain deal is extended. But that obviously won't happen without Moscow on board. How likely is it that we're going to get them on side to extend this deal?
Well, about the renewal of the deal, it's still unclear. We don't know, because Russia is very quiet about its opinion. From a Western perspective, of course, it's pretty simple why the deal needs to be extended. It is because of the food prices and inflation rate that would remain stable if Moscow is on board with this deal. But if Russia will agree to it, we're still unclear about that.
And can you tell us a little bit more about what demands Russia has made to agree on an extension?
Yes, in March, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and his Turkish colleague met, and they discussed a possible extension of this deal. And Russia and Lavrov stated that they will only consider a renewal of the contract if Russian agricultural and fertilizer producers' needs will be accounted to as well. So they need to be accounted for. And what else was important is that Lavrov stated that even though there are no sanctions on Russian food and fertilizer exports, there are some major issues when it comes to payment and logistics. So, for example, last year, 250,000 tons of Russian fertilizer were kept here in Latvia in a port because of Western sanctions. But Moscow stated another demand. They want to reopen and restart using an ammonia pipeline that goes through Ukraine in order to produce more fertilizer. But if Ukraine is going to make any concession in this regard is still unclear.
Thank you so much for that update. That's DW's correspondent Jennifer Palka.